All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rechak, Wadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And as you can see in the title, UN to seize global emergency powers. Okay, UN to seize global emergency powers. Now, this is an article that I once again came across from zerohedge.com. Found it pretty interesting um, with the contents that are written in here. And not too long ago, I did a lesson on what they call the Global Digital Compact, which was another form of basically the UN or this unification on a world scale of forming this central power to be able to be this body of authority basically for the world. Okay. So when people talk about conspiracy theories, right, and they mention, one of the famous ones was, of course, one world currency, one world government, one world religion, X, Y, and Z. Well, if you pay attention to how the world is going, you can see that they're eliminating the individualism in terms of on a national level of different countries and sort of making everything come in common, with everybody moving on to digital currencies, right? And everybody adopting these certain new policies, and so on and so forth. It's all leading to one direction. So it says UN Pact for the Future seeks permanent emergency powers for complex global shocks. And when you see these words, permanent and emergency and powers, you got to watch out. Okay. It says the United Nations is set to outline a far reaching plan to secure emergency powers that would allow the global body to lead a quote unquote common agenda for all nations during any complex global shocks, such as a new MIC. All right. And I mentioned this yesterday in the stream that I did, which was that basically they're trying to consolidate power into one body, which would I think no actually I think it was in a video that I did this morning actually on France. Basically, uh, I think they approved a bill that would allow police officers to secretly spy on people, through their phone cameras and the microphones and GPS system and all of that. And I mentioned that eventually what they're going to do is they're going to have one body, which is the UN, and these kinds of decisions that you see being made on a national level for certain countries will be done on an international level with this one world body that makes decisions for all countries. Okay, so when you see things like this, you already know where this is going, and they're moving very quickly. What's very interesting as well is this symbol right here looks like if I'm not mistaken, it looks like the symbol of the Romans that they had. Is it a Rome SPQR? There you go. This symbol right here. I think this is Latin. Yes. That's that. Senatus Populusque Romanus. All right, or Populus Romanus, which is the SPQR. And I believe that's Latin. But anyway, neither here nor there. So, but it goes to show you, right, that this is Rome all over again. So basically, they want these permanent emergency powers so they can lead a common agenda. So what's one example? Say there was a repeat of the Pandemic. In this case, instead of one country taking this route and deciding when they want to implement what kind of lockdowns, and another country later on implementing a mask mandate, then another country waits a bit longer and then says, okay, now we're going to close our borders. In this case, it would be all countries follow the protocol listed out by the UN. So if you imagine this, if you have an international body making these decisions, creating international laws, that means you would have an international law enforcement, right? Maybe like UN troops, right? Maybe something like that. That would be a conglomerate of all the forces of these different nations, and then that way, whatever nation needs so-called help, they could go up in there and exercise order. But it's coming. All right, it's coming. We're very quickly approaching this time right here in Second Ezra 16 and 71, as it says, they shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord, because they are instituting a society where they can have the power to be like madmen, and you won't have any power to do anything about it. The Federalist reports that the plan is to be finalized in a September 2024 summit of the future, where the UN will adopt a pact for the future to include policies that have been outlined in the globalist body's Our Common Agenda report. One such policy is an emergency platform during any events that have a global impact that would provide the UN the authority to actively promote and drive an international response that places the principles of equity and solidarity at the center of its work, as they claim. Meanwhile, as you can see here, the United States would be given unprecedented authority over the Slovakia. The United Nations would be given unprecedented, okay, authority over the public and private sectors of huge swaths of the world, all in the name of battling a yet unknown crisis. And how convenient that as we speak, there's a foreign enemy, okay, in the form of climate change, getting ready to come and tear up our world. And boy, are we gonna need the UN to suit up and boot up. All right, be suited and booted, and not afraid to bust, as Grandmaster Jay said. All right. So here's an article on that, right? UN to seize global emergency powers with Biden's support. This clown right here. It says the proposal might be the biggest attempted power grab in the history of the UN if approved. And then it goes on, so on and so forth. Maybe what I'll do is I will link this article here, and I'll just throw it in the chat for you. I have access to it. I didn't link in the description box, but maybe I will. Let's see. Cool. So yeah, this article is what I just dropped in the chat, and you can take a read into that. So carrying on, it says the report notes that some details of the emergency platform were outlined in a paper from March, with the UN Secretary General declaring, "I propose that the General Assembly provide the Secretary General and the United Nations system with a standing authority to convene and operationalize automatically an emergency platform in the event of a future complex global shock of sufficient scale, severity, and reach." Now, we know it's not a problem for them when it comes to fishing for global shocks or emergency situations. That is not a problem for them at all. What they want is to be able to implement powers and procedures and protocols that give them absolute control. So when it's time for these global shocks, which they control, they set these things up anyway, they already have the power. Okay. The paper gives several examples of what could trigger the emergency authority, including major climate event. Oh, wow. Would you look at that? A major climate event? Who would have thought? Future endemic risks. A global digital connectivity disruption. Wow. A cyber attack, a grid outage. I wonder what that could be. Major event in outer space. Whoa. Major event in outer space, huh? Ain't that some shit? It says, and generic unforeseen risks, or in other words, black swan events. What kind of major event in outer space would would require this? What I mean is this what was his name? Ronald Reagan, was it? I think it was him, was hinting at when he mentioned if there was some outside force that would that came, wouldn't all these nations unite, in the name of humanity to fight against it? So let's see. Because now, the sightings of these chariots, what the world calls UFOs or UAPs, have been increasing more and more and more. So let's see, maybe they'll have a United Nations Space Force. It goes on to suggest that the UN, so they would have emergency authority to deal with climate events, future demics, digital connectivity disruption, any cyber attacks, outages, anything of that sort. If there was an alien invasion, so called, they would have everything on lock, land, sea, air. It goes on to suggest that the UN would have the power to oversee the stakeholders of the world, including academics, governments, private sector actors, and international financial institutions, to ensure there is a unified global response to whatever crisis is declared. Sound familiar? Revelation 13 and 15. And they said basically, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that. Uh, we got over here Revelation 13 and 15, right? And he had power to give life to the image of the beast. Actually, not 15. Let's go up to 14. And he deceiveth them that dwelleth on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had a wound by a sword and did live. Now we know that when it says the image of the beast, it's really referring to the system, okay? And the current system we live in is based off of the ancient Roman system, but it doesn't stop here, because those same Romans are back here again, okay, and they're continuing their system. Hence, you see the New World Order agenda going forward, okay, and that involves all the things that they're mentioning in this article: having control of your academics, your governments, your private sector actors, your international financial institutions. So they're going to control everything. And this is why the Apostle John said what he said when he saw that they caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, everybody, everywhere on the planet will be affected. So the hour of temptation is not going to be a light thing. This is going to be a worldwide event, a worldwide test where everybody on the planet will be tested. It says the paper further, and this means, right, as they're saying, to ensure a unified global response to whatever crisis is declared. This means that whatever future crises are coming along, they're going to have to be big ones, because you need some justification to use these powers, these emergency powers. So that means you're not talking about just maybe an economic collapse of Uganda or something like that, like Uganda's economy collapses. You're talking about something that can affect the whole world, the whole globe. Something similar to the C-19, but on a much higher level, on a much more intense level. Maybe it might not be in the form of an airborne pathogen. Maybe it'll be in the form of a major cyber attack, or I don't know, some global financial crash, something on that global level. It says the paper further suggests that such authority would ensure that all participating actors make commitments and that can contribute meaningfully to the response, and that they are held to account for delivery on those commitments. It also states that while the emergency authority would have an initial finite lifespan, the UN would be able to extend it indefinitely if it saw fit to do so. So why make it even finite in the first place? We'll start off doing this for maybe 5 years, but don't worry, we can extend it to infinity. We can just extend it for all eternity if we would like to, if we see it fit to do so. The Federalist report, and once again, the reason they're centralizing things is because it allows for easier control right? It is easier for me to control what you all eat if you all come to one supermarket to shop than if you all had your own markets or you all grew your own food on your own farms, right? It's harder for me to come and control what each and every one of you is eating than if I was to do away with all your farms and all your personal areas and create only one main central place where everybody in the town has to come to get food. And if I then control that one main central place, I control everybody else. That's the whole pyramid scheme. That's why the higher you go up the pyramid, the smaller it is, because what's at the top trickles down all the way to the bottom. And the lower you go on the pyramid, the wider it gets. So the more people are affected by whatever is at the top. And it's easier to control that way. That's why they want to centralize everything. It says the Federalist Report notes that the Biden administration has backed the proposal on multiple occasions. You wanted Biden so bad, you got him. But by then, yeah, all right, that's it. That's it for the joke. So it says, prompting reporter Justin Haskins to warn that if the emergency platform is approved, the United States as we know it could cease to exist. Dun, dun, dun. All right. It says, I've read this before and it's alarming. The U.S. would relinquish its sovereignty. This must not happen. Americans will lose their freedom. The pushback to stop it should be intense. And this is where the world is going. Let me see if this is the same. Yeah, this is the same article. Matter of fact, they're talking about like it's some hot fire. Let's take a quick look into what this article has here. All right, and I've linked this and I've thrown this in the chat so you can see it there as well. The UN is planning to seize global emergency powers with Biden's support. Huh. This guy, he don't stop. There's a reason why they put him there. You know. Okay, so this is what we read. We read this today. See if there's anything new that we haven't already read. Okay. We've read that as well. Okay, it gets worse. Huh. Let's see. Okay, it talks about them extending this power for as long as they want. Okay, so it says here, it gets worse. As difficult as it might be to believe, the story gets even worse from here. Although the duration of the emergency platform would initially be set to a finite period, meaning it's not indefinite, so it has a start point and an end point. At the end of that period, so if it's maybe 6 months, at the end of 6 months, the Secretary General could extend the work of an emergency platform if required, according to the UN's own policy proposal. That means the Secretary General would have the authority to keep the emergency platform in place indefinitely, all without reauthorization from member nations. So they only need it once. They don't need to step in there once, and they can say, look, the Secretary General can say, we're going to extend it. And we don't need any reauthorization from any of the members, okay, of that are part of this. How much power is that? So we read this. Let's see. Okay, so it talks about Biden's support. So it says, rather than assert America's independence and sovereignty, the White House has expressed its support for the emergency platform. So basically, Biden said, yo, screw y'all, man. I'm selling you guys to the UN, and they can have it. U.S. Ambassador Chris Lu noted in at least 2 March 2022 speeches that the Biden administration backs the emergency platform, along with numerous other proposals included in our common agenda. Yep, the emergency platform would centralize an immense amount of power and influence, giving the United Nations greater control over the lives of Americans than it has ever had before. So you wonder why the UN is important and why should what they're saying affect you? Well, it's about to very soon. It says, and rather than stand up for Americans' rights, President Biden has already agreed to sell us out. Yeah, it says if the emergency platform is approved, the United Nations as Slovakia, United States, United Nations, but the United States as we know it would cease to exist. That sounds dire, but it's true. We either stand for freedom now or risk everything come September 2024. And it's interesting that I believe in this article they mentioned that this is going to be a summit that they would have. That it says that the Federalist reports that the plan is to be finalized at a September 2024 summit. Isn't that interesting? Huh? Quite interesting timing. September 2024. So here you go. These are the two articles, and this is where they're going with things. All right, and let me read this real briefly. This is the book of Matthew 24 and 22. It says, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. And when you read it, it's talking about that tribulation. Okay, but guess what? Leading up into that tribulation, the times we're living in now, all the way up until Yahweh Shai's return, the Lord is going to have to speed up those days for the elect's sake. Because if not, there will be nothing left to come to. All right, this world. Remember, we're dealing with the son of perdition here. Okay, and he's the man of sin. He was a murderer from the beginning. So everything he touched, he destroys. And this plan right here that they're setting up is Operation Prison Planet. But anyway, I'm gonna end it off here. Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.